Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
We've talked before about people being released from prison after it's discovered that they were convicted of a crime they did not commit. Someone else committed the crime, that is, they got the wrong person. Well, here's a new one, and Paul pointed it out to me. He said, Steve, check this out. Man freed after spending 21 years in prison for a crime that never happened. It's one thing to go to prison for a crime you didn't do. It's another to go to prison for a crime that no one did. Now, you might wonder, how's that happen? Well, let me explain. From Newsweek, Khaleda Rahman wrote it. Ralph Smith was freed from an Ohio prison recently after serving 21 years for a crime that authorities now admit might not have even happened. He's 45 years old, 45 years old, with 21 of those years spent in prison. He was accused of being one of two men who forced their way into a Lancaster home occupied by a couple and their children in February of 2000, according to the Columbus Dispatch. The suspects reportedly made one of the adults open a safe, and they stole rare comic books and around $10,000 in cash. The prosecution's case against Smith was based entirely on two of the victims, identifying him from a photo lineup with no other evidence linking him to the crime. So we've talked about this before. Eyewitness identifications can go a long way, especially if a witness is believable or appears to be believable or looks credible. And a jury looks at the person and goes, they look honest to me and they look confident. And they said, that man did it. He must have done it. Problem is here that nothing got done, but they blamed him for doing it. So two victims, identifying him from photo lineup. He was sentenced to 67 years in prison after being convicted of multiple counts of aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, and kidnapping. And we've talked before about one of the things that people often misunderstand. And many people think that kidnapping means that you have to grab somebody and take them away and then call in for a ransom. Say, I'm not going to release this person until I get some money. That's the old school cartoon villainish kidnapping. But kidnapping, at least at common law, was simply taking somebody and holding them against their will or moving them against their will. Literally, if you simply grab somebody and push them in a closet and lock them in there. In some jurisdictions, that is considered kidnapping. So, along with everything else. So, last month, the Fairfield County Common Pleas Court Judge Richard Behrens ruled that prosecutors had withheld evidence that suggested that the crime may have been staged and granted the man a new trial. So it turns out that if you were to go through the file and look at all the evidence in there, there was evidence indicating that the police had their doubts about whether this is even a real crime. There are reasons that people do call in fake thefts. It often involves insurance. Smith's attorney told the newspaper that a private investigator uncovered much of the evidence that prosecutors did not disclose during the trial in August of 2000. A narrative supplement written by one of the first officers to respond contains numerous observations expressing skepticism about whether a crime had even occurred. The officer noted there were no fresh footprints in the snow outside the house where the home invasion had reportedly taken place, and that the interior didn't appear to have been ransacked. So someone calls the police and goes, our house was just invaded by a couple guys, and they ransacked the place, and they tied us up, and they stole a bunch of stuff, and the cops walk up the house in the freshly fallen snow, and they see no footprints outside the house. They walk inside, the house is all neat and clean, except for there's some rare comic books missing. Smith was released on Friday after posting a $300,000 bond that the judge set for him on Thursday. So the judge said, look, I'm setting aside the conviction. We're going to give you a new trial. But we're still concerned because theoretically, if the charges against you do hold up, then you may have to go back to jail. And someone who just spent 21 years in prison might not want to show up for trial. So post a $300,000 bond. But here's the thing. The Fairfield County Prosecutor's Office has yet decided whether it will try Smith again. The prosecutor told the Dispatch that the passage of time presents certain hurdles and impediments for retrying the case. Among other things, you got to go find all the witnesses from 21 years ago and have them come into court. But the second thing, of course, is now you've got to actually let the defense have all the information that the prosecution had back in the day. So this is a crazy one. Smith told the newspaper he wants the charges against him to be dismissed. He says, I didn't do it. I think they know I didn't do it. And they know a lot of foul stuff happened. A lot of foul stuff. Man's keeping his composure. Got to give him credit for that. Smith's movements will be limited by an ankle monitor until prosecutors determine whether or not to move forward with the retrial. In the meantime, and this is the tough part, he's looking forward to spending time with his family, including his 74-year-old mother and his 22-year-old son, who was 8 months old when Smith was convicted. So the man had an 8-month-old son. He was convicted of a crime that might not have happened and spent 21 years in prison. So it's a tragedy for him. It's a tragedy for his son. His son grows up, and now we don't know what they told the son, but the son, if he knows the truth, knows that at the very least his father's in prison, and his father might not get out until he's a very old man, referring to both of them. So Smith's attorney and the Fairfield County Prosecutor's Office have been contacted for additional comment, but as of writing of this story in Newsweek, had not done so. But this is the crazy thing. We've all heard of insurance fraud, and I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just simply saying that this is one scenario that this could be. So someone wants to make some money, and you hear these stories where, for instance, someone's got a business that's not doing well, and so one weekend it goes up in flames. Oh my gosh, my business burned down. They file a claim with their insurance company. So everybody comes out and investigates, police investigate, insurance company investigates, and of course they quiz the building owner. And building owner can't let it be known that they did it, so they've got to deflect attention someplace else. So they either pretend that, hey, I've got a great alibi, it was nowhere near that building, have no idea what happened, or they come up with something else and they go, well, I got a couple disgruntled employees, a couple people who didn't work for me, don't like me. And next thing you know, they're looking at the wrong people. And that stuff happens, And so this is a if that's what happened here, we don't know. But for someone to call the police and go, yeah, we lost cash and some rare comic books, it does make you wonder if there's an insurance claim filed. But also, secondly, it's one of those things where you look at it and go, how did the prosecution not turn over everything? And when you're going into a criminal case, speaking very broad strokes here, and you're going to defend a criminal case, you're an attorney, you have a client, your client's on trial. You have the right to see, through a process called discovery, what the prosecution's case against your client consists of, but not just the good stuff. They've got to show it all to you. So you get the police reports. You get them all, including the ones that say, hey, I don't think this guy did it. And we've talked about this before, that, for instance, in the case of Timothy Masters, I wrote a book about him, Drawn to Injustice. It'll be back out in print in the fall. And there was so much stuff in those files. And yet somehow a bunch of it didn't get turned over during trial. It's the weirdest thing. And later in the hearings they brought to try to get him out of prison, this stuff just started magically appearing. We got, you don't have this? We thought you gave you this. You don't have this? And interestingly enough, there's ways that they track what they give you. And they'll often refer to things by Bates stamp. And a Bates stamp is a stamp, a ka-chunk. But each time you ka-chunk it, the numbers change. So it starts 000001. First document in the file, ka-chunk, Bates stamp number 1. Flip it over. Next page, ka-chunk, Bates stamp number 2. And as I was researching the book on Timothy Masters, I got the final set of stuff that was turned over after the trial. And the amount of stuff that was not in the first pile of stuff they sent over was scary. And the interesting thing was how much of it would have exonerated Tim, including, for instance, documents on other investigations where people said, hey, maybe we should look into this guy on that murder. Well, Tim was the primary suspect, Tim Masters. So it's strange how that works. But unfortunately, we talked about this before, prosecutors and police often think their job is to convict people. And so they actually think, my job is to win this. How do we win this? Well, here's the evidence we're going to use in court. We'll give that to them. This other evidence we're not using, we won't give that to them. And that's wrong. Prosecutorial misconduct. So don't know if that's what happened here, but it certainly sounds like something they should look into. But the man's been freed after spending 21 years in prison for a crime that never happened. Newsweek published it. Khalida Rahman wrote it, and Paul sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I see my path, but I don't know where it leads. Not knowing where I'm going is what inspires me to travel it.